TomTalks. It's been 2 months, which means it's that time once again. Hello all and welcome back to TomTalks, the programme where we talk about everything to do with Blue Bastard. Let's not dally around and get on with it straight away. Take it away, Sheffield. So, the later model series of Thomas, or the hit era, or the new series, or what is there to say about this era that hasn't been said? Nothing. Lazy writing, quantity over quality in terms of new characters, long, dragged out runtime, terrible personality flanderization, and borderline stupid concepts like playing hide and seek, delivering a light bulb on a flatbed, and taking sticky toffee to the children's costume party. Okay, I just want to talk.
I just want to talk to him.
Dad, this is ridiculous!
I just want to talk to him. I just want to talk to him.
Oh, but not to worry though, as Hit can justify their reasoning for making Thomas out of character.
He's new to Sodor, so he's more inexperienced.
This, of course, was all the result of Hit's vision of the show. They wanted to change the aesthetic in order to appeal to a mass toddler audience, and in so doing, they turned what was once a beautifully filmed, cleverly written, and undeniably relatable IP into a boring, slow, and incredibly lackluster reboot that feels like it was designed to make kids shut the hell up and go the hell to sleep more than anything else. Having said all that though, it's not to say there weren't any gems in this era. At this point, it's yet to get worse. We don't talk about the Nitrogen era. Well, unless it's Hero of the Rails or Blue Mountain Mystery. But there were plenty of episodes or concepts that were actually genuinely good, and wouldn't be out of place in the classic series. I've picked out one episode from seasons 8 to 11 I specifically want to talk about. Before you ask, season 12 is an ungodly fanfiction. There is no such thing as season 12. And I'm also not going to be going over the episodes that everybody automatically picks as the best of the later model series. These are all my personal preferences. Nothing I say here is hard fact, so don't treat what I say like it is. So, which episodes do I think deserve a little more love than they get? Let's find out. The first episode I want to shed some light on is Season 8's Thomas Saves the Day, written by James Mason. The episode centres around Thomas having to cope with running journeys to and from a new station under construction without Annie and Clarabelle, in which he has to try and overcome the difficult bend all by himself, which at first he cannot do. Only after suffering an accident at the difficult bend, he notices some runaway trucks that have broken away from Edward heading for the new station. So it's up to Thomas to get ahead of them and save the new station, which he does, while also navigating the difficult bend with ease. Now you may be confused as to why I picked this episode and not something like Halloween. Well, that, my friends, is because of two things. The first of these is Thomas, Annie and Clarabelle's relationship. These three are the most immortal, inseparable trio in the entire Thomas series. Or you'd think so. But then comes along this episode where the trio is separated, and Thomas has to struggle on without them. Unlike the Thomas and Percy dynamic where this sort of thing feels very fake and untrue of the characters, it carries some weight here when you take into consideration Thomas, Annie and Clarabelle are mostly seen together. The next thing I wanted to bring up is the runaway scene itself. The rising tension as Thomas tries to get ahead of the trucks, the feeling of urgency as the trucks hurtle round the bend with ease and are rapidly getting closer to the new station, and the epicness of the theme by Robert Hartshorne played during this scene. Thomas Saves the Day is one of those episodes from this era that ranges from above average to great. Where this episode is great, it's really damn great. Of course, it's far from the best episode of Season 8, let alone the later model series as a whole, but I do recommend giving it a watch for the action-packed runaway and the wholesomeness of Thomas and Annie and Clarabelle's dynamic. The next episode I want to focus on is Season 9's Thomas's Day Off, Oh, by the way, I'm talking about the episode here and not, The Thing. Written by the one, the only, the amazing Brenner-era voice director, Sharon Miller. Having rewatched this episode, I can confidently say that this is actually one of her stronger, if not her definitive strongest episode from her time of writing for Thomas. Yes, it's a Three Strikes formula episode, but I'll get to that momentarily. So the plot of this episode is that Thomas gets the day off. Why a revenue-earning locomotive has the day off just to fuck about is totally beyond me. And during this day off, he meets a new diesel engine named Dennis, who acts like he can't shunt his own trucks, so Thomas ends up wasting his day off helping him. One of those times when Dennis comes off the rails. Why I chose this episode is, again, for two reasons. The first of these being Dennis. Dennis is one of the stronger new characters from the later model series, as unlike a lot of them, he actually has a personality, that being, he's a lazy sod who gaslights others into thinking he's incapable of shunting. And this is where this Three Strikes formula element comes into play. This is more or less something similar to what Usual Bloke Luke said in his essay of Percy and the Oil Painting, but because Dennis's character is just a lazy bastard, he's supposed to get on our nerves each time he doesn't want to shunt his trucks, making Thomas's reaction to Dennis's confession after his crash completely warranted. The only real issue this episode has is something rather common to this era, that being the restraint of having Thomas interact with Dennis. I honestly have no clue why, but none of the new characters from this era, bar Madge and Rocky, interact with any of the pre-existing characters but Thomas. I do have my own take on this story with another character in Thomas's position, but, in the words of Victor Tanzig, that's a story for another day. Season 10's Big Strong Henry, written by Simon Nicholson, is a noteworthy Henry episode in the later model series. But why exactly? Let's have a look. In this episode, the Fat Controller gives a heavy freight job to Gordon, who is continuously looking down on Henry due to the fact that he's not as strong as him, apparently. Henry tries to prove himself to Gordon, only to be put down at every turn, one of those times involving Henry suffering an accident. When Gordon runs into trouble, and Henry finds a solution, only then does he finally get to triumph over Gordon. This is a lovely, grounded, character-driven story, focusing on the character dynamic of Gordon and Henry and their sibling rivalry-like relationship. Granted, it's rather predictable in some areas, but I respect Simon for tapping into this fun character pairing that this era really enjoyed playing with hit and miss results. But this one is a complete hit through and through. And the final episode I want to look at is Season 11's Dirty Work, written by Wayne Jackman, not to be confused with the original episode from Season 2. This episode centres around James, so of course it's on the list, world's biggest James fan, what can I say, who has been assigned a special to take the Mayor of Sodor to the Festival of Lights at Callan Castle. After being assigned this job, Thomas, Percy and Emily all recommend James help them while he's still got loads of time, to which James basically responds, "No, I'm doing my own crap, fuck you." When nobody else shows up at the castle, James goes back to find Thomas, Emily and Percy, and he does, and they're all struggling with their workload, and so decides to help them out, which leads to his decorations and paintwork becoming filthy and ruined, but is still praised for his hard work, despite what he looks like. This episode, to me, is the magnum opus of James episodes in the later model series. This era always managed to get James so right, and this episode is no exception. I also like that James changed his mind within the midway point and decided to help out after seeing his friends greatly struggling. Overall, a brilliant, possibly top tier later model series episode that is definitely one of the stronger episodes that came out during this time. The later model series did have plenty of ups, but the downs sort of outnumbered them with its share of backwards character portrayals and borderline stupid episode plots.
I just want to talk to him. I just want to shoot him. I just want to talk to him.
But I'll be honest, having looked back on those episodes in particular, it's nice to know that unlike what followed this era, there were still some genuinely good moments sprinkled about here and there. Lastly, before I go, it's time to go over to engineer Pixel Toby to see what he considers the best of this era. What do you think, Pixel? Excellent stuff, mate, thank you.